I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, American patriots, and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show. You had many places to be tonight. Just to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. We are following this devastating hurricane. Right now, it's a Category 2. Idalia is the name of the hurricane. It's expected to become a Category 3 hurricane, which is in excess of, I believe they're saying it will be in excess of 115 mile per hour winds. And as of right now, it appears it's going to strike just north of Tampa area. And the right forward quarter of this hurricane will be striking where I have family and friends that live there, to include one of our own moderators. Doc lives in that area. I have aunts and uncles that also live there. So please join me in prayer tonight and tomorrow that those in harm's way are safe and that this hurricane does not produce as much damage as past hurricanes have, because that same area right there was hit very, very hard, just 2 years ago. Okay, moving on. Let me first explain shortly a little bit about what I'm going to share with you. For the censors of YouTube, be it known that what I'm going to share first comes directly from Wikipedia. So if you think that I'm giving out misinformation, well, check with Wikipedia or just Google human experiments, unethical human experiments, and watch what pops up. This is factual information. This has happened in the past, in our history, and sadly, it is my belief that it is still going on today. So the beginning of this story is directly from Wikipedia, which, oh, by the way, is a left-leaning organization website. Throughout history, numerous experiments have been performed on human test subjects in the United States and were and are considered unethical because they were performed without the knowledge or informed consent of the test subject, and or test subject did not know the long-term effects of the test or what was even in the test. Still today, some of them are ongoing. The experiments include the exposure of humans to many chemical and biological weapons, including infections with deadly or debilitating diseases, human radiation experiments, injections of toxic and radioactive chemicals, surgical experiments, interrogation and torture experiments, tests which involve mind-altering substances, and a wide variety of other experiments. Many of these tests are performed on children, the sick, and the mentally disabled individuals, all under the guise of medical treatment. In many of the studies, a large portion of the subjects were poor, racially minorities, or prisoners. Many of these experiments violated U.S. law. Some others were sponsored by government agencies or rogue elements, therefore, or thereof, including the Center for Disease Control, CDC, the United States military, and the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. Or they were sponsored by private corporations which were involved in military activities. The human research programs were usually highly secretive and performed without the knowledge or authorization of Congress, and in many cases, information about them was not released until many years after the studies had been performed. The ethical, professional, and legal implications of this in the United States medical and scientific community were quite significant and led to many institutions and policies that attempted to ensure that future human subject research in the United States would be ethical and legal. Public outrage in the late 20th century over the discovery of government experiments on human subjects led to numerous congressional investigations and hearings, including the Church Committee and Rockefeller Commissions, both of 1975, and the 1994 Advisory Committee on Human Radiation Experiments, among others. Some of these experiments included surgical experiments, injecting pathogens into humans, injecting disease and biological warfare agents into humans, pathogens, disease, and biological warfare agents, human radiation experiments, chemical experiments, psychological and torture experiments, and pharmaceutical research. Humans being injected with unknown chemicals has not just been happening in America, but also across the globe in many other countries. Now, everything I just read is factual information, and you can look it up yourself, all of you fact checkers. So that brings me to the follow-on. Read between the lines however you may. The Biden administration will encourage Americans to get the updated COVID-19 vaccine when it rolls out in mid-September, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said yesterday. So we know that, as you all know, vaccinations against COVID-19 remains the safest protection for avoiding hospitalization, long-term health outcomes, and death, Jean-Pierre said at the White House briefing room. Which is why we're going to be encouraging Americans to stay up to date on their vaccines. Jean-Pierre did not give additional information on whether the administration would require its employees to get the updated shot. The White House told Fox News Digital in an email it will provide additional details in mid-September. The Center for Disease Control, CDC, expects updated COVID-19 vaccines from pharmaceutical giants Pfizer, Moderna, and Novavax by mid-September. They will need to authorize the vaccines alongside the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. The process could take an additional few weeks, pushing the availability of the vaccines to the public around October of this year. The updated vaccines are manufactured to target the XBB variants, which are descendants of the Omicron variant. The XBB variant is currently the most common strain of COVID-19, according to the FDA. After their authorization or approval, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices will meet to make recommendations outlining the use of these updated vaccines this fall. CDC spokesperson Catherine Conley told CBS News in a statement on August 9th. On Friday, President Biden said that he would seek more funding from Congress to support the development for another COVID-19 vaccine. I signed off this morning on a proposal we have to present to Congress, a request for additional funding for a new vaccine that is necessary, that works, Biden told a reporter. One that works. You're right, sir. Right out of your mouth. Tentatively, it is recommended that it will likely be recommended everybody get it, no matter what they've gotten before or not. The new vaccines and Biden's comments come as several regions have begun bringing back some COVID-19 era measures such as mask mandates and physical distancing. All in time for the upcoming elections. It's amazing how this virus has the ability to detect that kind of shit, isn't it? Anyway, moving right along, the San Francisco Police Officers Association blasted a local bakery after it refused to serve an armed police officer. The police union shared that one of their officers was denied service this month at Reams, California, an Arab bakery on Mission Street, due to being armed and in uniform. Reams, R-E-E-M-S of California. No cops allowed. That's the confirmed policy of the bakery chain Reams, said San Francisco Police Association wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter. The post includes a photo of an email exchange between the union and the bakery, where Reams spokesman wrote, "At Reams, we do have a policy to not serve anyone that is armed in uniform." Presumably, this includes military members as well. The police union responded on X. They condemn this bakery for its bigotry and discrimination policies and demanded the bakery put up a sign alerting customers of the policy, alerting customers of the policy. Reams, California defended their gun policy in an update on social media, saying it kept their employees and customers safe. Reams has a deep commitment to uplifting social and radical racial justice in our communities. This includes fostering an environment of safety for our staff and customers in a time of increased gun violence, particularly impacting people of color, youth, and queer people. We believe that maintaining a strict policy of prohibiting guns in our restaurant keeps us safer. The Instagram post read. What are y'all going to do? Set up a fucking search at the door? Are you going to put up metal detectors that people have to come through? How are you going to determine that the bad guy that likes to go in and shoot and kill people doesn't have a gun on him? How? How are you going to pull that shit off? Inquiring minds would love to know your answer. Reams told news outlets Mission Local the policy has been in place since they opened their store back in 2017. Although I would like to add that in the past, they did not stop police officers from coming in there and eating like they are now. On its website, the bakery lists social justice as one of its 3 core values, along with sustainability and community building. Spokesperson said that the police officers were welcome in the eatery when they are off duty and unarmed. This policy is for armed officers, and we let police officers know that we welcome them back to our establishment when they're off duty and unarmed, Reams told Mission Local. The San Francisco store announced it was temporarily closed until September 5th. Reams did not immediately return a request for comment. The San Francisco Police Officers Association also did not immediately return a requested comment by Fox News Digital. This isn't the first time a business has turned away officers in the liberal city. In 2021, the owners of a restaurant, Halday and Jesse, defended the later apologetics for turning away 3 on-duty police officers, citing their anti-gun policy. Earlier this year, a local pizza shop fired an employee after for telling several officers they weren't welcome in the shop. So, Reams, check this out. If you haven't noticed, in San Francisco, 1 out of every 5 businesses is being looted and robbed and pillaged, and shit's just out of control all over the city. So when it happens to you in your restaurant, don't call 911. Don't ask for the San Francisco Police Department to come out there. Call fucking Antifa or BLM. Call anybody but the police department, because you don't want them guys to come in there with their guns, their scary guns and their scary uniforms. Nope. You guys are absolutely batshit crazy if you think that your policy is to do anything other than discriminate against law enforcement because you don't like cops. That's all this is about, period. Because you've got no other way of determining if somebody has a gun on them when they come into your bakery. None, zero. Stick a fork in it. You guys are idiots. Moving right along. Just how stupid are those running our government right now? Well, here's a good look at some of that stupidity in motion. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is hitting back at the Justice Department. That's right, the DOJ, over a lawsuit alleging that the company engaged in employment discrimination against asylum recipients and refugees. Now, I don't know if I should repeat that to you or if everybody got it, and I think everybody got it, but just to be on the safe side, as crazy as this sounds, I'm going to repeat it. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is hitting back at the Justice Department over a lawsuit. The Justice Department is suing them for not hiring asylum recipients and refugees. That's right, because first off, we don't want the most experienced people turning wrenches on rockets that are going to go up into space. No, we don't want the most experienced. We want to make sure that we're everybody across the board is getting a chance to get hired at SpaceX. Not to mention, it's against the law in America to hire illegal immigrants, and that's the federal government's own policy. The Department of Justice on Thursday of last week announced a lawsuit against SpaceX, alleging that the company routinely discouraged asylees and refugees from applying and refused to hire or even consider them because of their citizenship status, in violation of the Immigration and Nationality Act, INA. According to the suit, SpaceX wrongfully claimed that federal laws and regulations restricted the company to only hiring U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents, also known as green card holders. Musk took to X, social media platform he required, formerly known as Twitter, and posted in response a picture of a job posting. It's at every federal building in America. This one particular one he posted is from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, showing that U.S. citizenship is required as a condition of employment, that the DOJ needs to just sue themselves, Elon Musk said. SpaceX was told repeatedly that hiring anyone who was not a permanent resident of the United States would violate international arms trafficking law, which would be a criminal offense, Musk said in another post on the platform. We couldn't even hire Canadian citizens, despite Canadian being part of NORAD. This is yet another case of weaponization of the Department of Justice for political purposes. And it's not just federal buildings or federal employment. Folks, go down to Walmart if you don't think you think this is bullshit. Go to fucking Walmart and ask them if they're allowed to hire illegal aliens. I guarantee you there's a sign posted in the employees' lounge area that states that they're not. Department of Justice lawsuit noted that asylees and refugees are legally permitted by the federal government to live and work in the U.S. without expiration, and added that there is no restriction on asylees or refugees working for companies that have to comply with export control requirements. Within the following, Department of Justice noted it must pass public posts on the subject, including one from 2020 on the platform, then known as Twitter, in which he wrote, U.S. law requires at least a green card to be hired at SpaceX, as rockets are considered advanced weaponry technology. And included another post citing the international traffic in arms regulations as a result of why the company was confined to hiring U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents. You couldn't make this shit up if you tried. It is the law of the land in America, especially federal government employees or companies that work with the federal government, and SpaceX is one of them, that you cannot hire those that are not American citizens, or at least has a green card. You can't do it. But yet the Department of Justice is interpreting their own fucking law to say that SpaceX is in violation of hiring practices. How stupid does one have to be to come to this conclusion that this is okay, that SpaceX is breaking laws? I mean, it's nuts, my friends, the type shit that's running our country right now. And you all know that. This is nothing new. It's an absolute mockery that's happening right now all over this country. A Colorado public school diversity teacher. What's your job? Oh, I'm a diversity teacher for Colorado public school system. Said in the private emails that he was struggling with the urge not to burn things down, which didn't represent equity, according to records reviewed by Fox News Digital. Casey Menninger, Menninger, is a diversity teacher in Jefferson County Public School District, Foster K-8 School. Menninger was involved in crafting the curriculum for other teachers to present to their classes. Menninger wanted classes to be focused on bad things done by white people. I'll have a quick presentation for 8th grade in the next couple of weeks. I just want them to work on some of the communication skills and understanding some terrible things that white people did, he said in an email dated January of 2022. These emails, obtained by public record request, showed that staff were not completely on board with his equity class, and they were talking trash about him. The meetings are very difficult, he said in an email dated August of 2021. I am trying to impact change in a positive way, but it's very hard to not want to burn things down that I don't find equitably. He then blasted staff for not having an equity lens. I'm learning a lot of resistance and restraint. I don't think anyone else on the team has that equity lens, so it is challenging to impact change where they don't see a need. I'm also trying to learn how to respond to emotional outbursts from adults. It is difficult. I don't like it. I'm struggling with not so subtle shots at me, he said. I have heard people talking trash about me multiple times already. I can't imagine why. The email was addressed to Nicole Head, who was also involved in working on a mandatory DEI class. You may not always love the content, yet you are asked to represent the class as their teacher anyway. I imagine many or all of you have held back on giving me feedback for fear of offending me or sounding judgmental, Head said. I've also chosen to hold back on feedback. I often felt either unsupported or completely out of touch with how this class was going for young students, she continued. Now we've arrived at conflict's door. I'm hoping, against hope, that we can use this as an opportunity to grow stronger as a team instead of becoming divided. I hope we can use it to practice healthy, productive conflict instead of drowning in feelings of being misunderstood or underappreciated. I feel strongly that the missing link is an assumption of positive intent. I'm willing to do the work and receive the feedback from you, and it would that it would take to get there. So I got some feedback for you. There's your feedback. Fucking unbelievable. Racist, bigot, son of a bitch. Let's see if we can find some more racist, bigot, son of a bitches, huh? I bet we can. Oh, yes, here's one. A Marxist teacher from Colorado who called for a forceful cultural revolution against whiteness was voted in by Democrats to fill an open state House of Representatives seat this past Saturday. Now, is that special or what? Tim Hernandez was selected as a state representative for the Denver area on Saturday by a committee of Democrats tasked with filling the vacant seat after his incumbent, Serena Gomez, was elected to the Denver City Council. Hernandez worked at Oro West Preparatory Academy and the Aurora Public School District, according to the website. Their staff list has since been scrubbed, and it is unclear if it continues to work in the Colorado district. A sign in the classroom called for dismantling white systems. Fox News Digital previously found that Hernandez went on a Marxist diatribe at a protest organization by unions. I want to tear some shit up. Are you ready? Hernandez said. What I think is happening in our schools, what I think is showing up in my classroom, is a lot of the things that we get into ideology circles up there. We like to compete. Who knows Marx better? Who knows these things better? Who's a Leninist? Listen, all right, I'll give you a real take on this shit. Kids don't care, he said. It wasn't enough to preach the communist theory. It had to be put into practice, according to Hernandez. Yes, it is important to know theory, but you have to do some practices. You have to get out into the streets. You have to get into the workplace. You have to go to the families. If we were just sitting, talking in an ideological circle, our kids are still going to school, or still going to schools that are underfunded, where they're investing more in their future than in their success. Your communist theory will not save you. The revolution will happen in the hood. It will not be led by who understands Lenin best. It will be led by the deepest Marxist. The revolution will be led by the people. And I say all of this because I'm a teacher. Fox News Digital also probed into Hernandez's public social media and found the teacher called for a forceful cultural revolution, particularly against American whiteness and white supremacy. He had signaled that he was including lessons on communist theory in his classroom. For example, to engage young children in his lens of society, Hernandez said they should be shown the movie A Bug's Life, followed by a lesson on proletariat revolution, meaning a social revolution in which the working class attempt to overthrow everything else. A lot of people call me a unicorn. I'm not an anomaly. I am a testament to the work we still have to do. This is sacred. This is powerful. This is necessary. I tell my students the truth, he said, according to his notes from a Memphis rally back in September 2021, which was revealed by Fox News. If white people spent half of the time they spend trying to distance themselves from their whiteness and instead spend it actually deconstructing systems of white supremacy, where would we be, he asked. Systems of white supremacy are upheld by individuals to remove individuality from the conversation is unproductive. I'm absolutely advocating for a cultural revolution where we dismantle individual and systematic white supremacy, he said back in January 2021. We're talking about whiteness and white supremacy, and I'm willing to advocate for any form of disruption to it and every manifestation it has, he said. I am denying the freedom of upholding white supremacy. If so, I am in favor of that denial. And white supremacy is currently upheld by force. So yes, I'm advocating for forceful cultural revolution wherever we assert the dignity of life for all the expense of white supremacy. Hernandez's classroom was filled with flags supporting for the Palestinian and far-left political causes, including one that suggested the United States of America belonged to the Aztecs. Hernandez was previously fired at another school in Denver. Public school system are being called aggressive, divisive, and attacking by a school administrator. He said in a tweet, the phrase cultural revolution is derived from communist totalitarian history. The Chinese Cultural Revolution was a political purge and prosecution of millions of suspected anti-revolutionary orchestrated by Mao, who was the chairman of the People's Republic of China from 1949 to 1976. The violent movement opposed the four odds, old ideas, old culture, old customs, and old habits, and featured the destruction of culture artifacts. Hernandez also said white people need to be subject to re-education. Long ago, we were going to have to wait for white people to grow and unlearn, because to be honest, having to wait for the group in our society that has the slightest educational levels, most economic power, and highest political capital to grow seems like bullshit to me, he said on Twitter. On occasion, Hernandez blasted white women. I seriously question if white women even remotely notice the number of times they interrupt other people in a day, he said. He has also commented about the racial dynamics of teaching, blasting the profession for being 80% white. 80% of the teachers are white because education system wants them to be, and they choose to promote the oppression their equity departments try and fail to dismantle, he said. Sir, you are hands down a special kind of stupid. You're funny, but the sad part is you're a teacher. You're influencing the young minds of our children to think like you do, which is crazy. None of us give a shit about Marxism or communism. That's not what we want. But that's what you're preaching for. No matter the disaster, whether it's a mass shooter, a person being shot by a cop, or a natural occurring event with the weather, Democrats all seem to have the same problem. They always jump to conclusions before the facts are out. The shooter was a MAGA Trump supporter. The cop was a racist bigot who shot an innocent black youth minding his own business. Or the hurricane, forest fires, floods, or droughts is caused by global warming, right? We hear this from them weekly. Well, Hawaiian officials attribute the cause of the catastrophic wildfires to alleged failures from the state's main power utility company and downed power lines this week after Democrats blamed the disaster on global warming. A lawsuit filed this past Thursday, the government of Maui County, Hawaii, alleged Hawaiian Electric Company and its subcompanies failed to properly power down live electrical equipment aimed a red flag windstorm earlier in the month. Due to this failure, downed power lines operated by the utility company sparked a series of deadly fires on the island, the lawsuit claimed. The lawsuit alleges that the defendants acted negligently by failing to power down their electrical equipment despite a National Weather Service red flag warning on August 7th. Maui County said in a release announcement in its lawsuit. The lawsuit further alleges HECOs energized and down power lines ignited dry fuel such as grass and brush, causing the fires, the announcement added. The lawsuit also alleges failure to maintain the system and power grid, which caused a systemic failure, starting 3 different fires on August 8th. Maui County argued in the lawsuit that the electric company has a duty to properly maintain and repair the electric transmission lines and other equipment, including utility poles associated with their transmission of electricity, and to keep vegetation properly trimmed and maintained so as to prevent contact with overhead power lines and other electrical equipment. However, Democrat lawmakers, a top White House official, and Hawaii Governor Joseph Green have all blamed the event, which has claimed the lives of at least 115 people so far, on human-caused global warming. This is devastating. This is a climate emergency, Senator Ed Markey, Democrat Massachusetts, original sponsor of the Green New Deal, wrote on Twitter August 10th, "I stand in solidarity with my friends and colleagues from Hawaii who must act fast, provide aid, and invest in a resilient and safe future." Heartbreaking fires in Hawaii, scientists are clear that climate chaos wreaked havoc on ecosystems everywhere is the new norm, Senator Jeff Markey, Democrat, Oregon, said in a separate post. "We need to take action immediately or else this will get even worse." Representative Ro Khan, Democrat, California, also spearheaded a recent congressional investigation into big oil, called on President Biden to declare a climate emergency in response to the fires. "My heart breaks hearing of the devastation in Maui." Representative Cori Bush, Democrat, Missouri, added, "The climate crisis is here and it's now killing people." It's time for Biden to declare a climate emergency. Senator Dick Durbin, Democrat, Illinois, joined in, saying the wildfires were a devastating view of our planet as we failed to adequately address the climate crisis. And White House Clean Energy Czar John Podesta called for policies to reduce carbon emissions to fight future natural disasters like the Maui wildfires, which he said were fueled by climate change. This summer has brought one climate disaster after another, from extreme heat in Arizona and Texas and across the southeast to floods in Vermont and upstate New York to thick smoke from Canada wildfires, Podesta told reporters on August 16th. And all of us have watched in horror as the Maui fires have claimed over 100 lives, the largest loss of life of a fire in the last 100 years in America. To stop these disasters from getting even worse, we have to cut the carbon pollution that's driven the climate crisis. And that's the Inflation Reduction Act is all about, he continued. Experts, though, have thrown cold water on the claims that climate change triggered the Maui fires. Instead, they say the event was largely a result of years of poor forest and bush management, in addition to declining agriculture. Such conditions, they said, allow fires to spread rapidly and make fires harder to contain. Blaming this on weather or climate is misleading, said Clay Trenstrat, a University of Hawaii at Manoa professor and economical management expert. Hawaii's fire problem is due to the vast areas of unmanaged grasslands for decades of declining agriculture. The savannas now cover about 1 million acres across the main Hawaiian island, mostly the legacy of land clearing from plantation agriculture and reaching in the late 1800s, early 1900s, he continued. The transformation to savanna makes the landscape way more sensitive to bad fire weather, hot, dry, windy conditions. It also means we get huge buildups of fuels during rainy periods. So, the wildfire in Hawaii, had absolutely nothing to do with climate change. It was power lines that had fallen down in windstorms, and the Hawaiian Power Company didn't turn the power off, and therefore it started fires, and the wind spread it, and that's the end of it. But they want you to believe that it has something to do with climate change, just like the hands up, don't shoot, just like the old Trayvon Martin case, the Alton Sterling case. Democrat lie after Democrat lie as to what caused these different things to take place and happen. It's pretty damn sad. The following was posted today via Fox News Digital by Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, retired. He is the author of Operation Pineapple Express, the incredible story of a group of Americans who understood one last mission and undertook one last mission and honored a promise in Afghanistan. 2 years ago this month, as things fell apart in Kabul, Afghanistan, our task force, Pineapple, was scrambling to save as many Afghan allies as we could. I sat at my kitchen counter with my wife right in front of me, but I was 7,000 miles away, furiously reading and crafting urgent text messages within our single chat room. Suddenly, I received a text that interrupted my flow state of digital rescue. It was my buddy Brad, a former Green Beret I've served with in Afghanistan. I glanced at his message. Is there a way for me to get to a country close to Afghanistan and be on the ground to help get our people out? Was his question. I shook my head in frustration and swiped the screen back to the signal room where evacuation planning was underway. None of us were going to Afghanistan. Remote rescue was the best we could hope for. I'd explained that to Brad when things slowed down. I never did. Less than a year and a half later, Brad was dead. Brad didn't die in combat. In October 2022, he was found unconscious in a Mississippi hotel room following a long downward spiral of depression and alcohol that kicked off during the botched Afghanistan withdrawal. He left behind his wife, Diana, and two amazing kids, Hannah and Chad. Alcohol was a defining accomplice, but his heart was broken by moral injury. Brad wasn't alone. Thousands of post 9/11 veterans are dealing with deep moral injuries resulting from the blotched Afghanistan withdrawal and systemic abandonment of our closest Afghan allies. A moral injury comes from acting on or witnessing behavior that runs counter to one's values and deeply held beliefs. Moral injury has slammed our Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans hard. For 20 years, a group of young American volunteers, service members deployed year after year, carving out deep relationships with Afghans to prevent another 9/11. In August 2021, within a matter of reckless hours, those same Afghan partners were abandoned, tortured, and killed, while images of this flooded the phones of these veterans who had already seen so much horror in war. Some of the youngest of our post 9/11 service members deployed to Kabul airport and were exposed to horrific human suffering. Afghan men were executed by Taliban fighters in full view. Children were trampled under the feet of massive crowds, and fathers held their suffocating babies inches from the faces of Marines and paratroopers struggling to hold their composure with no recourse for assisting these helpless people. They redeployed home to a country that had been moved on, and a chain of command that offered them no psychological counseling to process the horrors that they had seen. In March of 2023, I warned Congress that we were on the front end of a veteran mental health tsunami, and we didn't mobilize our resources and deal with the moral injury that had ensured from the blotch withdrawal. As F on Q, there were over 88,000 calls to the VA crisis line shortly after the fall in Afghanistan, the most in VA history. After the gutting end to the Afghan war, the Biden administration marches on as if none of this ever happened. The Department of State and Defense senior leaders remain in lockstep with the administration. 2 years later, not one senior leader has resigned or been relieved. This defeating silence includes retired generals and admirals who are equally silenced in the public space. In the absence of institutional leadership, veterans are doing what they can do best, stepping up and leading the way. A young Marine named Joe Lond, who endured the trauma at Abbey Gate explosion, left his beloved Corps and invested every dime of his savings into a nonprofit operation, Allies Refugee, which offers healing sanctuary to the service members deployed to Kabul Airport during the withdrawal. A Marine Corps spouse named Amy recognized the domestic shortfalls plagued or the new Afghan neighbors and founded a nonprofit called React DC that has led its way on Afghan resettlement in America. A former Air Force Special Operator named Travis formed a nonprofit called Moral Compass Federation of 20 veteran volunteer groups taking on veteran moral injury issues. As for me, our nonprofit, The Hero's Journey, is performing a play I wrote, sponsored by Gary Sneet's Foundation, called Last Out, Elegy of a Green Beret. It is traveling the country, healing hearts through warrior storytelling of an all veteran and military family member cast. For post 9/11 veterans, one thing is clear: nobody else is coming. It's just us. I'll take those odds any day. The veterans I share the sandbox with and their families are a force of nature, and they are running circles around our institutional leaders. Again, that was op-ed penned by Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, U.S. military retired, and the author of Operation Pineapple Express. I, for one, talked quite a bit about how I felt with the Afghanistan withdrawal, the blotched withdrawal, how I felt and many veterans felt that we just fucking surrendered. All the hard work, blood, sweat, tears, injuries, deaths that occurred with U.S. service members and our coalition forces was for what? For what? It doesn't mean shit to this administration. There was a way to do that pullout where we could have left there with honor and dignity and felt like we actually got something accomplished. But instead, we didn't. And to make matters worse, I will go to my grave and always say this, what I'm going to say right now. By leaving behind billions of dollars in military equipment to the hands of our enemy was a treasonous act by President Joe Biden. He should be held accountable for treason, as well as the Joint Chiefs of Staffs that don't have the balls to stand up to their commander-in-chief and say, you know nothing about what we're supposed to do or how we're supposed to do it. And this is also why I've said it once, I'll say it many more times. I do believe that in order to be president of the United States, since you will become the commander-in-chief of our military, you need to have served in at least the National Guard or the reserves or active duty, for crying out loud. the fact that we will bring people in to become president of the United States that don't know anything about what our service members go through tells a lot about where our headspace is in this country. It just goes to show you everything else we're doing that's fucked up and wrong here. And under this administration and Democrats and liberals in general, not all Democrats, but the majority of them up in Washington, D.C., they're hell-bent on destroying the legacies and the good of this country and what our forefathers built. They're hell-bent on destroying our Constitution, our amendments. They want to strip away your First Amendment rights. They want to strip away your Second Amendment rights. The list goes on and on, my friends. This is nothing new. This is something that we all know. We see it happening right in front of our face. And we hope that come election time, we can get enough people to realize how fucked up the Democrat Party has become to vote them out of office. I used to be a Democrat. I was a proud Democrat. I grew up in a Democrat family in South Louisiana. We were all Democrats. We just voted Democrat because that's the way you're supposed to do it. Until I woke up and became an adult and joined the military and went, what the fuck? There's two major differences in these parties. And I'm following the wrong damn one. It goes without saying, my friends, if you don't do your homework and you don't realize what's happening around you, just crawl under a rock somewhere and bury your fucking head in the sand. And don't ask for help from the rest of us to come pull your ass out when shit goes to hell in a handbasket. And it will. What we saw happen in this country with Pearl Harbor, with 9/11, what's coming is going to make that look like a walk in the park. Because we can't learn from our history. We have too many liberals and liberal Democrats that are trying to erase American history and stop you from thinking about the consequences of our actions. And when you erase history, you repeat history. Every civilization on planet Earth that rose up and became big, became too big, destroyed themselves from within. And I'll be damned if we ain't right on the cusp of doing just that. Ronald Reagan said it plain and simple. We're one generation away from that being it, folks. Stick a fork in it. Done. And I'm here to tell you that generation is right fucking now. And it's time that we wake up. It is time that you start sharing videos like mine and other conservatives and Republicans across social media and letting people know that we're out here screaming at the top of our lungs to get people to understand the truth about what's happening in this country and where we're headed if we don't fix it and turn it around and do so very, very quickly. Anyhow, you have many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. I thank you very, very much. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel, ring the bell. Also, let your friends and family know about the channel. Share my videos. In the description of this show and all my videos, you can see where you can follow me on other social media platforms. Follow me there. I'll follow you back. That's how we spread this knowledge. And pray. Pray that we get through this. Pray that we get through the coming weeks and months and years. I've got some very disturbing things going on in my thought process about where things are going right now in this country, and it's very frightening. I have a lot of input from friends that are serving in the government still, that I served in law enforcement with, that I served in the military with. Some friends that are in some very powerful positions that share stuff with me from time to time. And I'm starting to realize really, really fast that we're on borrowed time. If we don't turn this shit around soon, there will be nothing to turn around. There will be nothing to leave for our children and our grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren, but a shithole country just like most of what's on planet Earth. Is that acceptable to you? Or should we stand up and keep preaching at the top of our lungs that we have to fix this? We have to come together and we have to fix it before it's too late. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. And if you do not know what blue and gold star families are, or angel families, please look that up, because they need our support now more than ever before. Because this current administration up in Washington, D.C. at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, they're pissing on the graves of their loved ones, literally. And that is unacceptable. I'll see you back here Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. Anything happens between now and then, I'll put out a show about it, or I'll do a show about it, or I'll do a video about it. Other than that, check out my community section. I'm always updating something there, whether it's funny or something serious. And I hope that you all have a wonderful and blessed night. And please keep those in harm's way over in Florida in your thoughts and prayers as this hurricane bears down on them right now. Take care, everyone, and God bless.